Let's bring in Howard. Beck's been covering the NBA for 25 or 26 years. I know we just sound like we're crazy people over here, Howard. We're just we're doing sports talk radio. But I do believe, Howard, and I've been on this all year with the Celtics. I'm not a backseat driver. I just struggle late in games with the clarity between Jaylen and Tatum. Tatum's better, but he's got a two mentality. Jaylen Brown's got a one mentality, but he's kind of a two. And I always feel like Pippen, MJ, Clay and Steph, Mikal, Bird, even Shaq and Kobe, who were turbulent, one was the dominant interior force, one was the next Jordan on the perimeter. Let's say the Celtics don't win. Howard, don't you have to do something after 6 years of this?
Great to be with you, Colin. I don't think you have to do something. And I think that if you do decide that it's time to do something, you're not breaking them up to get back anything less than an outstanding return. So I was listening to you talk about the possible deal with the Warriors, which is a really interesting one with two teams that were just in the finals a year ago against each other. But that, to me, did not sound like enough of a payoff if I'm trading Jaylen Brown, who is an incredible young talent, who I think has a very bright future of many All-NBA nods ahead of him, including potentially one that I think is coming today. So I don't know that I want to break them up. I think that the Tatum-Brown duo, for whatever their shortcomings have been in this series or in the finals last year or in previous years together as they were kind of growing together, whatever those flaws are, they're still one of the best 1-2 punches in the NBA. And especially in a time when having really versatile wing players who can all shoot, handle, defend across multiple positions is really valuable.
But you know that Milwaukee's going to reboot around Giannis and Drew Holiday. We feel that. Pretty good front office. Let's go to the Warriors side. And I'm not a Jordan Poole guy, but there is a number that's pretty clear. When Steph's gone, he averages 26 a game. With Steph, 16, meaning he needs to be the man, not the man that subs for Steph Curry. He's kind of his own, and I do think he'd be a really nice player for a lot of teams. If they lose to the Lakers, and right now statistically, data tells you historically they will. What kind of move, because they've been very comfortable, Howard, tweaking and rebooting. They're very Silicon Valley. They'll start over. You tell me what would make sense for them if they go down, they win tonight and then they lose in 6.
So first, I'm not ready to write off the Warriors yet, especially when they're playing an elimination game at home. I think they'll probably extend this thing. I could be wrong. The thing about the Warriors is they have evolved a lot, right? The entire supporting cast has changed around their core 3 guys of Steph, Clay, and Draymond over the course of this dynasty. And there were at least a couple of times, and certainly before last year's championship, that we thought it might already be done. Right. So they have been nimble as a franchise. They've been bold. They have tried a couple different things, right? They have gone the veteran route, and then they were trying to do this 2 timeline thing that has kind of failed. Let's face it, right? You trade Weissman for Gary Payton II for a reason. Whether, if they fail in this postseason, whether it's time to then lean even further into that move, right? Maybe it's time to see what you get for Kuminga, Moody, Jordan Poole, and say, listen, we only have a couple of years left with these guys. Steph is still playing at an MVP type level. Klay Thompson is better now than he was a year ago when they won the championship, right, because he's that much further removed from those devastating injuries. You have a window with these guys, and Draymond is still incredibly effective. But the way to win with those guys is to have other veterans who know how to play a certain way, who know how to win at a high level, and who just know what it takes. And their young guys in various capacities have just not met that expectation. And Jordan Poole was really valuable at times a year ago in that postseason as they made the run to another title. And right now he just looks kind of lost. So yeah, I don't mind the idea of moving him on if you can find a better fit. But, with that new contract kicking and everything else, I'm not sure what you're getting back for him.
Yeah. So, it's funny to watch. If you go back to the bubble year, it was LeBron out of his prime, but very, very good in spurts. AD dominant and very well rested, 3.5 months sabbatical, right, during COVID. And a bunch of guys that were bounce around the league guys, KCP, guys like Rondo that could kind of fill space, and a defensive coach. It was also a weird year where the veteran teams folded in the playoffs and the young Heat, because the veteran teams missed their wives, their kids. It was a psychology year, and the Lakers were the one older team that flourished. So it was kind of a weird year, but they kind of, in an odd year, it worked. A two-man team. So this year is weird. Bucks get rolled. Cavs and Sacramento, young teams, can't win a series. Everybody's banged up. Chris Paul hurt again. And I look at this Laker team and I think LeBron is out of his prime, but is good in spurts. AD, again, is dominant. I have not seen this team, Howard, at all. As a championship team, I'm flummoxed. It's a bunch of bounce around the league guys, away past his prime LeBron, and AD, who's good every other game. Did you see this as a championship team 2 months ago, 3 months ago?
Glad you mentioned this. I have a story up at GQ Sports on GQ.com right now about what I'm calling the age of chaos in the NBA because of everything that you just mentioned. And the fact is, it seems like no one, whether the good teams or the bad teams, especially in the West, and also the case with Miami and Milwaukee, were actually what their records suggested they were, right? It's the inverse of the old Bill Parcells adage about your record, you are what your record says you are. No, they're not. The reason we're confused by the Lakers is this just isn't the same Laker team today or the last month and a half, 2 months, as they were to start the season when they still were trying to figure out how Russell Westbrook fit or didn't fit with them, and when they didn't have enough shooting or defense around their stars. And oh, by the way, when their stars were missing massive stretches of games. So partially it's just that LeBron James and Anthony Davis are healthy. And then a lot of this is they completely changed their supporting cast before the trade deadline by bringing in D'Angelo Russell and Jared Vanderbilt and Rui Hachimura and the rest. So they actually have a functional team. So yeah, the record suggests that they did not have this kind of run in them, but their play over the last, 4 to 6 weeks of the regular season, when they had one of the best records in the NBA, when they had one of the best defensive efficiency ratings in the NBA, suggested that, yeah, they might actually have another run coming. But it was so hard to assess because the rest of the West was just as weird and hard to read as the Lakers have been.
Who do they match up better with? The Suns with no bench or Denver with very little big game experience in these spaces like an AD or a LeBron? Like if you were Darvin Ham, who I think's actually done a really good job, they turned the roster over at the trade deadline. And literally the team almost immediately got very good defensively, and now they're great. If you talk to Darvin Ham, who do you think he would rather play next?
Man, this is a tough one because, Kevin Durant, obviously a decorated champion and a great player, and Devin Booker has just been absolutely on fire in the postseason. But I'm picking the Suns. I'm picking the Suns because if you can just withstand some of the blows you're going to take from those two stars, the drop off to the rest of that Suns roster is pretty steep, and especially the bench. And we've seen Monty Williams hunting and pecking throughout the last few weeks, trying to find a rotation, trying to find bench guys that he trusts, trying to find guys who can give his stars a blow, especially Durant, who's having to play 40 plus minutes at this age with this mileage. I just think the Suns' room for error, as great as their top level talent is, they just don't have enough behind them. And that's what happens when you make an in-season blockbuster trade. You don't have any time or resources to go replenish all the depth you lost. And that's what they're going to have to do when the season ends, whenever that may be.
By the way, LeBron and AD, you're seeing some of their fatigue as they only get 1 day's rest for the Warriors. I think playing at 7,000 feet against the deeper Denver team is hard. That 40-minute flight to Phoenix is much easier, and a team that has no depth than a deep Denver team at 7,000 feet, who, by the way, may have a 2-day rest advantage in Game 1 if they take care of the Suns here quickly. All right, Howard Beck, it's great to see you as always. Covered the NBA since the late 90s, Sports Illustrated, New York Times, LA Daily News. Howard, thanks for stopping by. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.